guys, I'm LT.
I'm Dan.
And one of the most asked questions that we always get, whether it be on a phone call, in person, or on email, is what the different grinds and what are they good for? So we thought we would show you some examples today and talk to you about the different grinds and what we feel that they're good for. Both of us started out grinding on a hollow grind. Okay, we had an 8-inch wheel. They make 8s, 10s, 12s, different sizes, but we both learned on an 8-inch wheel. So the majority of our early knives were a hollow grind. Now, in your opinion, what do you feel a hollow grind is best suited for? What do you like to use it for?
I think they're generally good for a lot of all-around things. It's not just one thing it would be good for. I mean, they'll cut meat well. They'll cut cheese. We did a demonstration on cheese one time, how well it cut cheese.
Right.
And also doing some wood carving and splitting of wood and things like that. You can do it all with that. So I guess after that, it's a personal choice as to why you're choosing a hollow grind.
I think it is a big personal choice, and depending on how thinly ground it is, whether it's really good for these other things. Like our large workhorses, they're ground thick enough to where you could baton with them. One of the example of a hollow grind is our Frontier Valley knife and a hollow grind. Now, a hollow grind, in definition, is concave. So the majority of the blade profile is cut out, which makes it great for cutting meat or field dressing. This was the knife I grew up field dressing with a lot, was a hollow grind.
And as a hunter, that's also the one that I started with, was a hollow grind knife. One of the negatives you could point out about a hollow ground knife would be that at its weakest point would be in this area here, would be the weakest point of that knife. So when you're choosing a grind, you have to understand that if you're choosing a grind for the cutting capabilities, then you want to make sure that's what you're doing. You're not going to go bang it through cement blocks and things like that. You choose a grind based on what you're going to use it for the most. Doesn't mean you can't use it with for other reasons. It just means which one are you going to use it the most, which will make you the happiest, or whatever one you choose.
So always choose your tools by the majority of what if you're going to field dress, most of the time, make sure that your blades are around there. It goes back to that shotgun rifle pistol thing that we always talk about. All three tools are fantastic in their given environment. You wouldn't take a pistol and shoot at elk 500 yards in most instances, like a 9mm Glock or something. So you have the right tool for the right task. You're going to be pleased with whatever the grinds are.
Yeah.
So for a hollow grind, it's cut out. Now, all of our knives do have a convex edge, so this edge will still be convex, but a hollow grind, we feel, is very, very good for field dressing. It's great for slicing, and depending on how thickly they are ground, you can adapt them into many, many uses. So that's the hollow ground knife.
Yeah. So what you'd also want to make sure is that if you're driving this into a piece of wood or hitting it in bone and twisting it a lot, this would be the place where it will fail. So again, can't stress enough that you choose a knife based on what you're going to do with it.
Absolutely. Flat ground knife is a knife that is ground from the bottom to the top of the steel. So it very much looks like this from top to bottom, still having a secondary edge.
So this is straight from this point to this point.
So as you cut through whatever the media that you're cutting through, most of the time it's going to allow that to go right down the edge. Like let's say you were cutting a piece of cheese and you want a nice straight surface, this works well. I think an advantage that the flat grind does is it gives you great slicing ability, but still because it gets thicker as it goes up, it gets stronger all the way through here, giving you a good structure to work with.
But that's a very good cutting knife, because this knife you should be able to get to a real sharp edge. And so it'll be an extremely good cutter.
Yep, so the flat grind knife, definitely, it gives you, the hollow grind has a little bit of the concave, the cutout. The flat grind gives you good strength, very V-shaped, still having that secondary edge and that convex edge on it. So flat grind is a great choice for, let's say, field dressing game, and I would say light to medium bushcraft.
Yeah. I think these are some of the best cutters that you're going to get as far as sharpness, and you're going to get a knife to perform well just for cutting, which is what most knives are supposedly for. This one doesn't split wood as good as some of the others. You can do it,
right,
but you may drag from here to here because that's a flat surface. You may drag on the wood all the way through, whereas one of the other grinds, it may act like a chisel and separate the wood. So flat grinds, just keep in mind what you're asking that grind to do.
So a good rule of thumb is a flat grind will slice very, very nice, and it also get you into light chores and the woodcraft kind of stuff. Again, with any knife, hollow, flat grind, no matter what it is, the degree of angle and the thickness of the bottom part of the grind, the thickness here, is going to determine how well it slices, or is it a little thicker for a little beefier work. So
Right.
keep those in mind as you're choosing your grinds. The saber grind is becoming quickly one of my favorite grinds.
Yeah, mine too.
I like it quite a bit. The saber grind, one of the advantages or disadvantages, depending on how you look at it, is the distance between here and here is backed up with a straight portion, as opposed to the flat grind, which would go from top to bottom. The saber grind is partially ground up the knife blade, leaving a flat section.
Yes. Which makes this portion of the knife extremely strong because you didn't take any metal out of there.
So saber grind, you're still going to get that slicing, but you're also going to get that extra little bit of flat surface if you're going to be doing some bushcrafting, batoning stuff, or just tasks that maybe you don't necessarily think of sometimes with a knife, a little bit more heavier duty task. A saber grind is a fantastic choice.
Yes, it is. It's a lot stronger, and when you're splitting wood, when you get to this point here, it starts acting more like a chisel, and it pops the wood out, and then the sharpened portion of the blade no longer touches the wood as it goes through.
So with a saber grind, we're still you have your flat section, your full saber, and your convex edge. So this still does have a secondary convex edge, as do the flat and the hollow at the same time. So saber grind is a great choice for bushcraft and field dressing game.
Yeah, so we don't typically find the weak spots in this knife like you would in others. We talked about the hollow grind earlier and the weak spots and potential downfalls of the hollow grind. This one, you don't have that. This knife retains its strength all the way through the integrity of the entire grind.
And I think that's one of the things that's leaning me towards it is it just
it
does,
crosses those bridges in
it gives
between
you
the two.
really good control over the knife. It's getting you the best of both worlds, I think.
Yeah. That's why I like it.
So check out the saber ground knife. The Scandi grinds, the bushcraft guys are real into the Scandi grinds. Now the difference between a Scandinavian grind or let's say a saber grind is a Scandinavian grind. You can see that the flat section is quite a bit taller than the saber grind. Also, the difference mainly in these two grinds is this is ground primary. There is no secondary edge on it.
Yes, goes right to zero.
It goes to zero. Where we hard buff that 0 degree edge, it'll kind of micro bevel a little bit, but what we're trying to do is keep the micro chipping from happening. Scandi grinds are a little bit fragile right on that little edge. Sometimes I've heard people say once you get them sharpened in once or twice, they do a lot better. We feel if we do a hard buff that we're giving you the best possible edge out of the shop that we can get.
Yeah.
A lot of the woodcraft guys like Scandinavian grinds because two things. They feel that if they sit it down on a stone, keeping the angle, it's easier to sharpen. And the second thing, it's like a wood chisel.
Yes.
Dan and I are both carpenters. We know what a wood chisel can do, and that's what a Scandinavian ground knife is, very similar to the wood chisel.
The control of the angle that you hold the knife at, you can lean this Scandinavian grind down over a lot more severe of an angle, and it'll cut right away.
Right.
Where the other knives will start to skip off because you get past that edge point.
Now, this is not my most favorite grind for field dressing game. Yes, you could probably do it, but I don't think it's
You can
suited
do it.
the best.
I did it last year in Iowa.
I would rather have a flat saber or hollow for doing that. It can be done. Again, choose your first task mainly, and in a Scandinavian, I think you're really good to choose a bushcraft task.
Yes.
Yes, it can be used for many things. Scandinavian grinds can be grind at different angles. If you grind it at a higher angle, for instance, it'll be fantastic for field dressing game. So it's one of those things. It depends, a lot depends on the thickness. Just like we talked on the flat, if this is thicker, it's going to baton better than if it was thinner, and it would cut better if it was thinner. Same thing with
So
the
if you're
Scandi.
splitting wood with this, you get to this point here, and you've already come off the edge of your knife. You're not on the edge anymore, dulling it. So it's good for splitting wood.
Absolutely.
It's not real good for chopping things. If you get into bone or whatever, you run the risk of chipping your edge because it's not a chopper.
Right.
If you're going to go with a chopper, you need something that's more like an axe. This grind does a lot more fine detail in carving sticks and doing traps and triggers and things like that. Not recommended for chopping.
So if you're real into bushcraft and woodcraft, the Scandinavian grind just might be the one for you.
Yeah.
Okay. A convex grind basically is slack ground. So what we do is we'll take our machines, we'll move our wheel or our platen out of the way and make a slack portion so that when we put the blade up against it, it gets a little bit of a rounding or convexing that goes on. Convex grinds are a very popular grind for a couple reasons. If you look at the way it's set up, it's very thick throughout the whole body of the knife. However, it is ground from top to bottom.
Yes. So you can grind them to 0 down here, and that's okay. But I think, do we put the secondary bevel on there?
We do put a secondary convex edge on that convex grind.
Which I feel makes that stronger. It doesn't bite as quick, but it does make it stronger.
And with proper control, you can make this knife do quite a bit. This is one of those things that sometimes something just gives you that feeling like you've got something that you're not worried about. A convex grind very much does that for me.
I'll beat that thing all day long.
Yeah, we would definitely baton that.
No, I seriously would whack it.
Just whack it all day long. But as you can see, it's very much like an axe, so it's going to act like an axe. If you're going to do this for batoning, once you start into the wood right here at this point, this wood is going to get, and it's only going to touch at one point, somewhere along that convex edge, which is going to keep your drag down, which is going to make it split very, very nicely when you're doing baton work.
Yep.
So
it's a real good one for getting out there in the woods and using it. And we're not afraid to chop a little bit with that one.
No, it does give you that confidence with a grind. This is a very popular grind. A lot of companies make them. We're getting more into making them. We're getting a lot of requests out of it. And it is a grind that I'm starting to like quite a bit.
Yeah, so I think I'll like that one. My two favorites is going to be the convex and is going to be the saber.
Probably. And I'm kind of leaning the same way. And that's personal preference. Everyone does have a different liking. And that's why we did this grind video. Kind of help you along. Remember, the main thing, always think, what is my first task? Am I going to field dress? Am I going to everyday carry?
Because that's absolutely personal to you.
It is. And we don't want to tell you what to use. We know what we like. So if you get an opportunity, check out a full convex ground knife.